All right, here we go with health, wealth, and happiness. 7 steps to reset and rebuild existing relationships. In this video, I'm going to really help so many people that have reached out. And especially through, as of the filming of this, we're kind of coming out of this pandemic and isolation and these kind of things. People have had major issues with those closest to them. So many people have reported, I didn't expect to be with this person 24/7, 7 days a week. And I can deal with them in doses. Sometimes it's a husband and wife. Sometimes it's parents and children. Sometimes it's cousins and friends. Whatever that is, we're going to walk through a really pivotal, and I would say very informative, very helpful, 7 areas, 7 steps, if you will, that will really help you reset and rebuild. And yes, so many times when I'm talking to people, I'm like, hey, how are you showing up to the relationship? And they're in a rhythm that isn't their best. We'll put it that way. So before we get started, I would love for you to think about the relationships that are closest to you and the quality of those relationships. If you were to rate the top 5 people you're around the most in terms of quality of relationship, 0, it's a toxic relationship that is horrible, to 10, I just can't stop wanting to be around that person because there's so much fun, adventure, happiness, joy, humor, all of these kinds of things, right? What does that sound like for you? Take a moment, if you're watching the video or watching the replay, go ahead, pause it. If you're watching the replay, pause it, and then just write down 5 names and rate them. If those ratings fall below an 8, today's going to help you level that up. If those ratings fall below an 8 right now, go ahead and think about one thing you can do to up-level that relationship. And so often, and we'll cover this, it has to deal with talking or connecting to their intrinsic and extrinsic values. What's important to them internally? What's important to them externally? Extrinsic values are things like social recognition, money, status, power, fame. Intrinsic are things that are important to us like personal freedom, relationship value, those kinds of things. Does that make sense? So we're going to have a lot of fun today working through this, and I hope you're sensing this is a tough conversation for many. So 7 steps to reset and rebuild existing relationships. You ready? All right. First and foremost, we got to set the big stage, the 5 Ps. I'm going to write them in, and as I do that, I want to think about it through the lens of relationships. First and foremost, purpose. What is a purposeful relationship? What is a relationship filled with passion, positivity, productivity? What are we producing together? What are we going after? And if it matters, or if it's part of your equation, profit. So often we think about that through the lens of husbands and wives, and they want to live a more financially free life. And profit's a big part of that. So that we're bringing in more than we're spending. That makes sense? So when we think about relationships at the big scale, the 5 Ps apply. Is this relationship purposeful? Is it forwarding me to feel better about life? Is it forwarding them to feel better about life? When I think of purpose, I often say there's 2 different big areas that I am just blessed to help people with. One is purpose is helping others improve their life somehow. The second part for me is I help others grow their business somehow too. Does that make sense? So when I think of a relationship, am I improving their life? Am I, when I go into a room and I leave that room and they're in that room, am I leaving it in a better place than when I came in? Am I adding value? Am I bringing good energy? We're going to talk about that today. Am I helping them be better, do better, feel better than before I was in the room? Isn't that a great kind of pulse to the quality of a relationship? Passion. I hope you're sensing I'm passionate about this topic and I'm passionate about being here with you. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a really tough couple of weeks for me. I don't know why. There's these funks that I get into. Everybody gets into these, as I've studied and worked with literally hundreds of people over the last decade in high performance coaching. And it's been just everything that, we go after and we think about the tasks, the things we have to produce. It's just, I've had this it's 10 times harder than when I think about it, it's 10 times harder than I think it should be. And just being here with you has pulled me out of that, pulled me through that. And then yesterday I had a migraine, and I get these every once in a while. Luckily, after I cleaned my life up in terms of eating healthier, losing a lot of weight, like I'm really fit and I'm running every other day. When I get these migraines, I have the aura, that's the eye thing where you can't see for a while. And then it goes away, and usually the headache would hit back, especially before 10 years ago. And it'd knock me out for a day. Yesterday, it knocked me out for about an hour, and I was back. And it wasn't even like I was knocked out. It was just pain in the head, these kind of things. So there must be something in the air, whatever that is. My point with all of that is this. We reset ourselves. We rebuild ourselves. We've got rhythms, if you will, to bring ourselves back online, to feel better, to be better, to do better. And I lived into mine over the last 2 weeks. One of mine is just to be here with you, helping you, being enthusiastic, having energy. I would dare say great energy. Bring in the joy as I wore this beautiful hoodie today. Rocking it out for us. But my question for you, are you feeling purposeful in those closest relationships, in your existing relationships? Are you bringing the passion, the energy into them? Are you feeling positive overall? Are you feeling productive? And productive doesn't mean you have to get stuff done together. Productive can simply mean that when you are in each other's space, that we're moving things forward. Maybe that's in our relationship. Maybe that's watching, this is kind of funny, but it's true, watching shows together. Binge watching a Netflix series. That's productive for a lot of people. I think it's productive. And let me qualify that. Did we have connection? Did we enjoy the time with each other? And did we go through an adventure together through the lens of an episode or a series like Ted Lasso on Apple TV? Great show. Did we move forward through that? Does that make sense? There's so many people are like, I don't feel productive watching TV. If you're relaxing and resetting yourself, that's productive. If you're enjoying that, that's productive. Sometimes we have to reframe the way we think of productive. At least that's the lens of high performance from this beautiful journey in life. And then the profit piece we've kind of covered. But if it matters to you, is in the quality of our relationships, are we creating success together financially? Are we moving things forward? Especially husband and wives, we have this conversation a lot. I've had the honor of coaching many couples in high performance. That's two people on a call and me on the other end, and I'm working with it. And sometimes that gets a little touchy, as you might be able to imagine. But the idea is that a big part of feeling free as a couple or free in a relationship is the financial freedom piece. The ability to have a sensation that we have some runway, that we can do what we want. So these 5 Ps play a critical role in the quality of relationships. And if you want, you can rate yourself in these areas, and you might do it per relationship. If you have those 5 that we started with, you'd be like, okay, how am I doing with the 5 Ps with this? Is this relationship purposeful? Am I bringing good energy and feeling passion, enthusiasm about it? Am I generally positive in it? Am I feeling like that relationship at the end of a week or the month or a year, if I looked over the last year, is that relationship productive? And again, like I said, did we watch movies together? Did we have fun? My stepdad had his best friend down, one of his best friends down from Michigan. So we're in Florida. And they watched 17 or 14 movies inside of 1 week. And I would say they felt that was ultra productive. They just were having a blast. 2 guys hanging out and lazy boys rocking it out. Productive. And then profitable if that matters for you. So that ends the perspective part of our work today. We got a lot to cover with the 7 areas. The very first thing that I want to make sure is that you have a very clear vision for what a dream relationship is. That you've really thought through what a dream relationship is. Sometimes we have to think of that through the lens of values. So we have connection as a value. Do I feel connection with that person? We have unconditional love as a value. We have the feeling of fun, freedom, adventure. Sometimes these are values. These kinds of things. Does that make sense? So let's really spend some time and unpack a dream relationship. So a couple points, a couple ideas, a couple frames for you to think through. first and foremost, and I hope you sense this with the way we're in this moment together right now, is that my goal, my aim is to feel good enough, energy, focus, clarity, all the things we talk about in high performance coaching, that I'm bringing joyful curiosity to when you and I are together. Do you feel that right now? That I'm bringing joyful curiosity. So let's unpack that. To be joyful, I have to be of good energy. To be of good energy, it means I have to live into what we've trained in Season 3, Session 1. Sleep, hydration, drinking lots of water. If you have your water with you, let's take a sip together. Drinking lots of water, keeping this body lubed, eating nutrient-rich most of the time. That gives me that lean, clean energy. Exercising. Been out yesterday running. Every other day I run, and on the other days I do some form of workout, fitness, that kind of thing. So these 4 critical areas help me bring and feel an overarching sensation of joy. And I'm bringing the joy to you. The curiosity piece steps into a lot of the things we're going to cover today, where I'm active. If you and I are talking, I'm active listening to you. I'm making sure I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm waiting a beat before I respond. Give you some white space, as we talk about in coaching. What does that mean? It means when you're talking and you're sorting things out, I'm listening to you, present and engaged with you, right? So what I would challenge you to do, and we've talked about this in previous trainings, is to think about your life theme. Mine, no matter where you see me or when you meet me, I'm joyfully curious. And if I'm not, slap me. Tell me, dude, you're supposed to be joyfully curious. What happened? I can't think of any time that I'm not typically joyfully curious. I mean, obviously I'm sleeping. I'm not joyfully curious. I'm sleeping. But you know what I mean? Like when I'm around others or just with myself, where we're playing computer games, these kind of things. Joyfully curious. The way I approach life, joyfully curious. Our cryptocurrency mastery, joyfully curious. There's a whole bunch of stuff I got to learn and apply and try. So powerful. So joyfully curious is my theme. And maybe that could be yours, or something similar, or something completely different. But think about that through the lens of how you show up for and participate in your relationships. So many people I've worked with are like, it's their thing. When I walk in the room, it's blah, blah, blah. It's on it's on them. And I'm like, how are you showing up? And especially for long relationships, there's a whole set of behavioral rhythms that are just like subconscious. You just show up the way you have for years. And you got to shift that if you want to up-level the quality of that relationship. Is that helpful? Another lens to look at things through is the above the line, below the line work. If you've been in our trainings, you probably know what this is. But we have above the line qualities, traits, characteristics of ownership, of accountability, of responsibility, of growth, like growth-minded. When we think of joyful curiosity, that just leads itself to growth-mindedness, of ambition, of positive energy overall. Not that we don't get negative, because struggles, challenges, frustrations of life come up. But the highest performers pivot fast. They shift that energy. All right, life dished me a big one. I got to be responsible here. I'm going to shift my energy for this. Or I'm going to go and leave and come back and shift my energy for this. Whatever that would be. If any of these things seem too far out of reach for you, I'm challenging you down here to ask for help. If you're not in our mastery community, I'm happy to offer you one session in our Zoom roundtables where we really break this down for you, where we hear you and then we help you and we'll even role play with you to sort of touch the rim of what's possible for you through the lens of this. Below the line behaviors, qualities, traits, characteristics are filled with blame, excuse, denial, fixed mindset. Like, here's the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And this comes from Carol Dweck's book called Growth Mindset. But the fixed mindset is one of, I can't do that. That's not going to be possible. Never be able to make that happen. The growth mindset comes at it from, hey, you know what? Yeah, it seems impossible, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to go after it. And I always think about growth mindset through the lens of joyful curiosity. I'm going to go after this through the lens of, hey, what am I going to learn here? And I'm going to bring good energy to it. Is that helpful? Next is gossip and negative energy. That's what the negative sign is. Positive energy, negative energy. So let's kind of break this down a little bit. 2 people I've worked with in the last 2 weeks. I said, I want the relationship to change, and these things are happening, and can't believe he's like that kind of thing. And I'm like, back up a minute. Are you walking into that situation with neutral or negative energy right out of the gate? Yeah, okay. So we have to emanate a new kind of energy. And we have to bring a new level. Oh, that's going to be too hard. This has been years, decades of bringing that energy into a room. And by the end of this training, I'll have tactics for you to really facilitate a shift of energy with things you can do. Kind of a co-created vision, which is the best kind. You know, there's a saying, another thing for you to think through the lens of for relationships, is people support what they create. Everything is a co-creation. So if you got your notes out, write that one down. People support what they create. Everything's a co-creation. And you got to ask good questions. We'll talk about that in a little bit to facilitate co-creation. So I hope we've delivered the value for you right out of the gate here. We've got joyful curiosity as a theme. We have, where does our conversation predominantly lie? Is it in ownership, accountability, responsibility, growth, ambition, positive energy? Or is it in blame, excuse, denial, fixed mindset, gossip, negative energy? Is the arc of the conversation, I can't believe you're like that, I'm leaving? Or is the arc of the conversation, hey, you know what? There's a couple things you do that are annoying to me, but I want to build our relationship. What could we do to really enjoy time with each other in the future? To really, when I come in the door or we get on a Zoom or whatever, that we're talking about things that are more future vision oriented. You know, let me just give you an illustration that seems to resonate with so many people. A lunch. Let's say there's 5 people at the lunch. You're one of them. So if you and 4 friends or 4 family members, whatever it is, and you sit down at the table, and the conversation goes like this. Hey, so did you hear about him? Oh my gosh, what a total bleepity bleep. I can't believe that's going on over there. Did you hear about her? Oh. Or you sit down at the table and they're like, hey, so what are you working on? Oh, you're working on that? I'm working on this project that's going to help in these ways. I'm working on this application, like a computer application, that's hopefully going to empower people to do X. I am playing games, video games, this is my story, video games with my best friends from high school. And just so you have a frame, I graduated high school just a few years ago, a few decades ago. And we're playing computer games. Last night we played Battlefield 2042. And here's what happened. And here's what we're going after. We can't wait to play because we're going to level up, get this thing, go after that. Do you sense the difference in the conversation? That predominantly this one was more below the line and this one was more above the line. So you have to, we'll talk about this too in a minute, you have to develop your skills, wisdom, ability, your intuition really, to sense these conversations. And if you're up for the challenge, you got to challenge them to level the conversation up, or you may have to find new friends or be around different people. Does that make sense? So this is how that kind of manifests from the idea of building a dream relationship. You've got to ask better questions. Let me give you a few, and we'll talk about this as we get into Trifecta of Happiness as well. And a couple of questions that I would ask. Hey, if we had the best lunch ever, this would be before the lunch, reaching out individually to the people that I would be inviting. If we had the best lunch ever, what would it feel like once we are done? Oh, I'd feel empowered. I'd feel like I knew more about cryptocurrency. I'd feel like I knew more about this kind of dream or goal that I have that I'm going after, and I'm just toying around the idea and I want to talk that through. Okay, cool. That's a conversation above the line, even before you do it. You know, Sir Patrick in our mastery community has an amazing tool called the Intentional Interaction Planner. And this is where you actually sit down and you think about, what's my intention when I interact with these people? And it goes through these different steps. And I'll make sure, if I can, to link to that below for you. That's really helpful. Elizabeth Philippe, she's a YouTuber. She works with Ali Abdaal, one of the big YouTubers that I follow. She has a values exercise, and I've referenced it in previous training, that helps you understand the values that are important to you. is part of a dream relationship. So a couple values, we talked about a couple: connection, unconditional love. So many people, there's a value of depth, and the depth meaning the depth of relationship. We'll talk more about this in a minute. That I'd rather have, actually, let's just talk about it now. This is down here. Determine deep or shallow. Quality versus quantity. And what I'm getting at with this is I determined that I am good in both spectrums, where I can have not as deep relationships with many people, but I also really enjoy and love having deeper relationships with closer friends and family. What do I mean by that? It means that I'm still in communication on a daily basis with my best friends from high school, John and Todd. Like, we text every day. And last night, Todd and I were playing Battlefield 2042 and rocking it out. And we're on the headsets, we're talking the whole shebang. And Todd and his lovely lady are coming down in a few weeks, and we're going to have a great old time like we have before. Partying it up, rocking it out here in Florida. And that's really, really important to me. On the other side, I am friends with a lot of people who we don't have the deeper relationship, but they still know I care for them. So it may be helpful for you to think through the lens: do I do better where I have deeper relationships with fewer people, or a lot of relationships that maybe aren't as deep, maybe they are, with more people? Does that make sense? Quality, quantity. So I feel like I'm ambidextrous, where you write with both hands, but through the lens of the fact that I can do both. But a lot of people are like, I'm more of the deep person that wants to, the deep gal or guy, that wants to really have quality, deep relationships with people through the lens of above the line. And right now I've got deep relationships. This is what a couple people reported to me, that are primarily below the line. Like, if you hear just the beat of their conversation as you're talking to them on the phone or in person, it's bump, 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 bump. What does that mean? They're living in a neutral negative energy, and then they'll pop to positive for a little bit, but it's neutral negative. Where when you're listening to me, for example, it's bop, 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 bop. So it's more in the upbeat energetic realm. Does that make sense? Is that kind of fun? Think of it through the energetic realm. Just listen to the people's overall tonality, and you can tell right away where they're at. It's kind of cool when you develop that skill set. So I just want to make sure we've got the intentional interaction planner. Whoever thought, before you go to lunch with people, that you would journal or write out that you're going to be intentional with others? Like, here's the things that I hope, there's 5 people going to be there with each person, here's what I hope to have, and here's 3 good questions I could ask them to facilitate this dream conversation, this dream output, this dream sensation with them. And these questions don't have to be like magic. They can be simple, like, hey, what's your favorite movie for the last year? And why? And would you recommend I see it? Because you kind of know me. Hopefully they know you. I don't like horror flicks. I don't like movies that are ultra sad. I like more action movies, more rom-coms, these kind of things. And they may give you that reference. So you have some intentionality in the relationship. Very important part of this, and we'll talk more about this as we get to number 7, is the idea of co-creation of what's possible in a relationship. And this is what I've had to really share. I would say over the years, I've had a good relationship with my dad. And then in the last 2 or 3 years, I really worked to build that relationship up just through things that we like to do together. Las Vegas is a thing we like to do together. We love to play blackjack together. And whether that's at a real blackjack table or just at home, I got the whole blackjack set up. So we play blackjack together. He loves Hallmark movies, and I didn't think that I would like Hallmark movies, but I watched them and I really enjoy them too. So I approached that through the lens of joyful curiosity. Like, what is it that he likes about Hallmark movies? Dad, let's watch one of your favorites, and I'm going to give it a go and see if I like it. And I do. And one of them was in Germany. I think it was in Germany, and it was around Christmas time. It was a great movie. So that kind of thing. I'm not going to do that, fixed mindset. I'm going to give that a try. I'm going to really try to approach it through the lens of what you see out of it. And maybe I'll get a connection there. Maybe I won't. But at least I'll give it a try. You feel the difference in the quality of relationship there? People, when people recognize that you're bringing good energy and they feel heard, loved, and supported, you're hitting on the arc of quality relationships. And that's so, so critical. Next part is a little touchy, a little bit hard for, and when I think about the people that I've coached, two of which I've had to stop the coaching and they've had to go to therapy with somebody else, an actual therapist, because their relationship and their thought pattern around the relationship, one was with their mom. And oddly enough, and I guess this isn't odd, but when you think about it through the big picture, her mom passed away 2 years ago, but her voice was still in her head, hindering her ability to move forward in life. Her mom had injected toxic poison into her brain that said things like, you're never going to amount to anything, you never follow through on anything, you're a horrible person. It's just really bad through the lens of what happened there. Why are you even here? I was like, that's what she's told you. And worse, that's what's playing in your head. And she passed away 2 years ago. I can't work with you on a future vision, which is what coaching's about, at least through the lens of high performance, and then getting you there. Baby step in it. I can't work with you on that until you handle this stuff that's really hindering your ability to go forward. And that's not my job. My job is to move forward this way. Yours right now is to handle and get to terms with, and weird as this sounds, to have some form of fondness for the relationship with your mom. That almost sounds impossible, but I've seen people transform that way. Where their attitude towards their mom is, wow, Mom, for 30 some years, you held me up. Or I let you hold me up is more accountable language. And I'm not letting you hold me up anymore. I have a fondness for the fact that you showed me how I would never want to be. And I let you hinder my life in a way for so long, and I'm letting go of that. But that can require heavy amounts of therapy, psychotherapy, counseling. Does that make sense? So number 2 here is build your wisdom, skills, knowledge, intuition for detecting chronic negativity. And even abuse. This is a really hard conversation for so many people, including me, over time. But what I do have here for us is, and I'll link to this article. In my history, I lived with somebody who had tendencies, this is my ex-wife, when we met, that there was a little bit of a narcissistic trait and quality, and then over years it amplified. And I didn't see that because I was used to it, for one, and I didn't know what to look for. Does that make sense? So what we really have to study, and this article does a really good job of it, is to help us, especially those of us who are high empaths, have a generally overarchingly positive view on life, and aren't living in a neutral negative mindset too often, is we have to study the qualities. And here's 3 different kind of descriptors, if you will. Narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths. And as weird as this sounds, like, I don't want to read about that kind of stuff, but we have to sort of inform us, especially if we have kids, so that we can develop skills to sort that out. Because people with those kind of traits, qualities, and characteristics, typically, not always, can really hinder the quality of our relationship. And worse, as I was sharing with the gal I coached and I had to send to therapy, they can really hinder the ability for the people we're around to step out of blame, excuse, denial, gossip, negative, neutral energy to growth, ambition, positive energy. And I just tell you, like, I'm 50 now, I just don't have energy for that kind of people. And I'm highly skilled, like a ninja, if you want to call it that, around detecting that. And I run. I don't walk, I run. I'm like, if that's an enduring chronic trait, I don't want any part of it. If they want help, and I will ask on occasion, hey, did you know that what you just shared is a trait of somebody who's got a neutral negative mindset? I won't maybe say sociopath or narcissist or whatever. Are you okay with that? Because it's kind of off-putting to me. I've done that before, which is way out of my traditional comfort zone. So what I wanted to make sure of is that you get the idea of this. I'm not going to read the article to you, but I am going to link to it below so that you have a frame for these things, so that you can really help yourself and help others sort of skirt around or avoid or get out of relationships with these qualities if that's your desire. Because again, we're rebuilding and setting a high ambition for a really good quality relationship. We've kind of defined joyful curiosity, bringing good, unconditionally loving, connective energy, these kind of things. Does that make sense? So the narcissist, here's some examples of classic narcissist behavior. They're very much around intrinsic values typically, so they're very conscious of their appearance, career, wealth, and external achievements. Primarily, they're only talking about themselves almost exclusively. This is a key indicator that I didn't realize until I studied this myself. They rarely ask about others' feelings or interests. And we'll talk about the trifecta of happiness in a minute. Great questions. They require constant praise and attention. They're highly reactive to criticism. They have a high sense of entitlement. They take advantage of others to advance themselves. In most instances, they need to be in total control at all times. They lack empathy, cannot empathize or understand the experience or struggle of another. So these are just some qualities and traits of narcissists. Sociopaths, unlike narcissists, isn't a clinical diagnosis. However, it's typically accompanied by traits of antisocial personality disorder, which is a clinical diagnosis. Antisocial personality disorder comprises a set of traits that include pervasive tendency towards deception, deviance, impulsivity, irritability, aggression, recklessness, the lack of empathy or callous treatment of others. So, some examples. They feign emotions. They have ulterior motives when acting warm or friendly. They're frequently deceitful and will lie to get what they want. They show a non-committal attitude at work or any type of authority. They lack they have a severe lack of empathy. They consistently blame others and take little to no responsibility for their actions. So they're in a major way, they're below the line behaviors are predominant. Does that make sense? And then the third one, and this is just a few, right? The big ones, right? Narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths. Psychopaths. Psychopathy is a neurological and physiological disorder whereby a person displays poor impulse or behavior control and a propensity towards callous or unsympathetic behavior, which results in tendencies towards social deviance and criminal behavior. Sociopaths are more readily violent than psychopaths are more readily violent than sociopaths, but may be equally as calculated. They tend to lack the charm of a sociopath, but can at times enjoy toying or manipulating with others as a form of entertainment. So examples of psychotic traits may include they have zero empathy for others, they have no regard for what's right or wrong, therefore they can easily violate the law and others. They don't process punishment as most people do. They're unlikely to respond to punitive behavior. It doesn't discourage them from doing unlawful or immoral things. They lack anxiety, which means they can easily do things that cause nervousness in others. They don't feel guilty for their actions. The reason I'm sharing this is because there's been so many people that have absorbed that person close to them. And when we've kind of unpacked the quality of their relationship, these things have come up. And the person I'm coaching is like, what do they call that? A narcissist? Well, I'm going to study that. They've gotten a checklist. And I'll see if I can link to that below too. A checklist of narcissistic traits and qualities. And they're checking them off. And they're like, out of 30 different items, they're like 28 of these checked. And they freak out. The people that I've coached that have realized this have freaked out. They're like, oh my gosh. I'm just telling you, this is giving me chills because one person was getting physically abused, emotionally abused, and mentally abused. All these things were going on. And they were able to go and live a fuller life without that abuse in their life. That's the kind of effective change at the work that I do. This is through the lens of high performance. I'm not an IST. I'm not a therapist or counselor, psychotherapist. I'm just helping people through the lens of the beautiful curriculum we have live into and define better future tomorrows and then be the best energetically. You know, full engagement, joy, confidence, coming from consistently living from our best self. Does that make sense? But we have to know about these things to really understand. I'll make sure, like I said, to link to that for you. But our thing is, we have to know the signs. And once you get to know the signs, when you meet other people, Sometimes that happens intuitively for you. It does for me now. I'm so honored and blessed to be able to tell you that. Oh my gosh. You introduced me to somebody today that there's just an emission of neutral and negative. And when I can, now the beauty of what I can do now that I couldn't 10 years ago is I can qualify it through the lens of what I just shared with you. They're emitting, narcissistic behavior. I'm not one for that. And maybe I'm off. Not bringing judgment to this scene. I'm just saying that's not energy I want to be around. I do not want to be part of that. So take a moment with this. And let's have a little mushroom coffee with our Bring the Joy mug, matching our shirt. A little mushroom coffee that helps rock that brain. Go after it. And think this through for you. If you go back to our exercise at the beginning, you think through the top 5 people that you're closest with. And not that I would wish this on you at all, but the idea of, do they demonstrate any narcissistic, psychopathic, sociopathic behaviors, traits, qualities? And I love this saying, I think I came up with this version of it, and that is, every moment I spend with somebody negative or neutral robs me from that same moment of being around somebody positive. So I'll say that again if you're taking notes. Every moment that I'm around somebody negative or neutral robs me from that same moment of being around somebody positive. Even if that person I'm around is just myself. What does that mean? If you unpack that, it means that I'd rather be with me working on, listen to a growth podcast, some of the greatest work coming out of Robert Breedlove's philosophies on Bitcoin and philosophies on life. This is stuff that really excites me. I'd rather be listening to that than dealing with neutral negative. And I have that choice. Does that make sense? So we have a limited number of breaths, limited number of heartbeats, limited number of moments in our lives. And my dream for you is to have every one of those moments filled with positive energy when you breathe in. Breathe in the good. Exhale. That your heart beats. Every time your heart beats, you're around good energy. Even if it's just with yourself. Every moment that you live, you have good, healthy energy around you. And you're generating good, healthy energy. Is that helpful? So 1, 2, and 3, they're in red for a reason. We'll review them. Adult learning theory says we should. First, we have to define our dream relationship. I gave you some frames. Joyful curiosity, above the line behaviors versus below the line behaviors. We talk through values, connection, love, intrinsic values, personal freedom, having time, quality time with others. Maybe even the 5 love languages, if you've done that work, the 5 love languages. Quality time is one of the love languages. Physical touch, gifts, acts of service, and there's one more and I'm drawing a blank. But these are great ways to think about what that means. Words of affirmation was the 5th one. And really understanding the people that are around you or the way that you want to be the way you want to be treated is really helpful for these things. Second, you have to build your wisdom, skills, knowledge, intuition for detecting chronic negativity and abuse. You got to know the signs. A lot of people I've coached, I've just had the honor of helping so many people now. Over 4,300 hours in the last decade through the lens of high performance coaching. You hear pretty much everything. It's crazy what some people bring to the calls. Like, someday if you and I are together and you want to hear some stories, let me know. I won't share names, but I'll share some of the crazy stuff that's come up in our sessions. They're like, I would have never known that this person, that one context is my husband, I just thought he was a grump. But he's using language that is these things. That particular relationship they ended up separating. In another context, it was another gal that I was coaching, she ended up talking to her husband and going, hey, did you know that these traits are seed traits for negative emotional abuse to me and others around you? And he just kind of fell into that. He didn't have that as a trait. It just kind of grew. You know how that works over time? Sometimes you'll be snarky or say something that's off-putting and you get a reward for it. And all of a sudden you start to build that skill if you're not careful. And I say build that skill not in a good way necessarily. And so he was able to reset because she called him out on it and they talked it through. Does that make sense? So that's the part we're really trying to go after here, is building the wisdom, the knowledge, the skills, even the intuition for this. And then determine, and this is just helpful, a lot of people that I've coached have shared, it's helpful to think through the lens of, do I prefer deep relationships with fewer people? And if I do have deep relationships with fewer people, how are they doing through the lens of this and the 5 Ps and the qualities, the traits, values, those kind of things? Or do I prefer, am I the person who's, got many relationships that are maybe shallower? Maybe not terribly shallow, but shallower. And whatever that is for you, there's no judgment either way. It's just knowing that is very helpful for you as you think about resetting and rebuilding an existing relationship. The language that comes from that is this. Okay, if I'm a deep relationship person, then I really, and this is what the rest of our training will help with, then I really need to go through and think about what that relationship at its very best could be, co-create with that other person, and let's go deep, deep in a great, great way. Does that make sense? So that's kind of where that goes. So let me give you a real life application. Okay, if I'm in a deep relationship with fewer people, and we do a lot of talking about adventure and stuff like that, we need to put scheduled plan together to go and actually adventure, to go climb, like in Atlanta, around Atlanta, or Stone Mountain, just east of Atlanta. There's a big mountain you can climb. It's like an hour-long climb. We need to go climb that mountain, then go to downtown Atlanta, and then hit Ponce City, and then go to the Beltline and walk the Beltline or run the Beltline. We need to go to Piedmont Park and hit a music thing. Down here in South Florida, we need to actually plan going to Naples Beach or Fort Myers Beach or Sanibel or wherever and doing a day trip. I want to deepen our relationship. And during that time I'm with them, I'm going to use Patrick's Interaction Planner, and I'm going to go through and really think about great questions to ask. We'll get into that in just a second. And to really aid that relationship. Is this helpful? So take a moment and assess what we've covered. Think about the lens through which we've thought through joyful curiosity, above the line, below the line, those kind of things. Just want to make sure that we're really setting the stage here. So now when we get into what I like to call, and I kind of just coined this term, the Trifecta of Happiness, as 3 different areas. I'm going to go over the 3, and then we're going to break them down for you. Now, what I want you to envision is that when you go into a relationship, when you walk through the door after work, when you go and you're hanging out with your buddy or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your wife or your husband, that these traits, qualities, characteristics are part of you. And just think about the lens through which this will be different. Maybe it won't be because you're already this. Maybe it will be. The first one is that you generate and bring great energy. When you walk in, it's like, hey, just think about this. Walking through the door after work. So many people I've coached, this is not the case, but we aim for this. Big part of high performance conversation. When you walk through the door after work, you're like, bam, hey, had a great day at work or I had a crappy day at work, but that doesn't matter. What do you want to do tonight? What can we do tonight to make the most? Like tomorrow may not be here. Tonight we're going to rock it out. That's the kind of energy that you have when you come through the door. You wake up on a Saturday and it's like, all right, what are we going to do today to make this day memorable? That kind of energy. Is that you? Could that be you? Is that helpful? Next, active listen. This is the number 1 skill that has helped dozens I've coached, is to be a better listener. Not this kind of listener. Yeah, I hear you. And you may not say that, but you're just looking at texts, sorting it out. Yeah, gotcha. This kind of listener. So tell me more about that. How did that feel? What showed up there for you? Notice there's questions involved. Great questions are happening. Does that make sense? Active listening. Build the skill. How do you do that? There's a few resources. Typically, we do that in high performance coaching as part of our work in clarity, energy, courage, influence, persuasion. I do a lot of active listen role plays. So we build that skill. Minimally, if you're in our mastery community, come into our Zoom roundtable and we'll practice that together. And it'll be on a replay so you can watch it to get the nuance. Does that make sense? The idea, though, is to be fully connected, engaged, joyful, and just be present with them. Give some white space. That's just time where they're done talking and you don't have to fill the void. Just let it air out. So often what happens during white space is they'll share something a little later that is like, give them a beat and they'll be like, oh, and I wanted to tell you. And that's where some of the gold comes out. Does that make sense? So develop the skill of active listening. Can you imagine just these two things? You're better with energy when you come in the door or when you go and see somebody. You just bring in and you probably know people like this. If you don't, I'm your guy. You just bring good energy when you come in. And then you're active listening. Now you pair that with the third element. Watch out, world, you're freaking ninja. Ask great questions. Become the master of this. We talked about this earlier. People support what they create. Everything's a co-creation. How do we co-create? We ask great questions. If you're resetting and rebuilding a relationship, what are some great questions you can ask? Any ideas? I'm going to give you a few. And it's so easy. Hey, you know what? I'd like to rebuild our relationship to be even better. Or I'd like to build our relationship to be even better. What are a couple things you think we could do to really level up our relationship? Here's what I think. What do you love to do? When we look through the history of our relationship, where did we have the most fun? Where did we feel the most free? Where did we have the most adventure? What's your favorite thing to do? Where's your favorite place to eat? What's your favorite meal to have? What's your favorite experience? And as I'm saying these things, all this stuff's coming up in my brain, like, favorite place to eat. One of them is Baba down on Fifth Avenue. It's a Persian restaurant. The Jujay kebab, which is chicken. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I so want to go there. Another one is Chibo here in Fort Myers. Just lasagna, there's spaghetti, meatball. Oh, so good. Norman Love for dessert, which is right around the corner. Favorite thing to do? Go to the beach. Hang out. Walk the beach. Spend some time. Just love that. You probably know that about me. Hanging out with these peeps. Paigey, Uncle Adam, Josie, and me. Rocking it out. That was in Atlanta last year. And just having fun. Playing computer games. We were playing computer games that night. And then we were at the Beltline and going down to Ponce City and these kind of things as well. These are some of the things that come up. You sense how if you come into a room with great energy, this is so difficult to do with existing relationships because there's an inherent, just subconscious mood that's set. You shift the energy. People are like, what are you on? Are you weird? No, I'm trying to be better for us. I want to be the best I can be so we have the best quality relationship. And bam, you set that down like that. Active listen. Hey, so what's going on with you? To my dad. What's your favorite Hallmark movie that you've watched in the last week? Or favorite show that you've watched in the last week? Why is it your favorite? That, and as simple as that sounds, that was not happening at all previous to a decade ago in my world. Didn't know the power. I would ask great questions. I don't even think they were great. I'd ask questions by accident. They weren't that great. They didn't have a lot of intentionality behind them. So the trifecta of happiness is key. Teams, family, friends, to reset and rebuild relationships. Work on bringing great energy. I would challenge you to bring joyful curiosity there. Active listen, develop your skills. Men are from Venus, women are from Mars. Is that the name of the book? He talks a lot about the very best question you can ask, or the statement you can make, I guess is how it was better worded, when you're with your love, especially guys to girls, is to say, with active listening, full engagement, tell me more. He was talking about how it was a melter for relationships, like melter in a good way, like really help them connect deeply. Tell me more. And I'm here like this. Eyebrows up. I'm ready to talk it through. That's a shift. Asking great questions that facilitate co-creation, which is where we're going to end this beautiful training today, is we're going to co-create a vision. Co-create your future vision. And I put F, F, and A. Fun, freedom, and adventure. If you're going to co-create a great vision with somebody that you're rebuilding or resetting a relationship with, I would challenge you to work through and develop questions for each of those three areas. Fun, and we've talked through that a little bit. What is, in the history of our relationship, the most fun we've had? What's some other things? What can we do to level that up? Freedom. Where in our relationship did we feel the most free? Where did we have the most adventure, sense the most, the highest level of adventure in our lives? What does that look like for us? What does that, okay. Now as we think about the future, what are some things, let's just brainstorm. What are some things that we could do that are of fun, freedom, and adventure? And as you know from our previous training, I've created a vision board. The fun, freedom, and adventure vision board is right behind the camera. And I'm looking at it right now. Date night, family fun time, beach, books, and brunch. Lakes Park, it's kind of in a dark room. Lakes Park every day. If you see me on Instagram, you'll see me running or walking in Lakes Park. It's kind of right by where the Studio in the Sky is. Video games with friends, video games on my own, these kind of things. Having a blast going after it all. But that's the future vision. And I've got it visualized in there. Does that make sense? Could you imagine if you, with that person you're looking to reset and rebuild a relationship with, you sat down each and developed, I use colored markers on an 11 by 17 piece of paper or a flip chart or a whiteboard if you happen to have one, and you just drew out, here's the things that are in our lives that really excite me and are fun. And these are just things that are coming to mind as I'm thinking this through. I'm just spinning off, so I'm going to just start labeling them up. Walking the beach, going to Miami Beach, having an amazing dinner at Pane and Vino, I think is the name of it. One of the top-rated Italian restaurants. It's a little cove. They make the pasta in the front window. Unbelievable experience with the spaghetti. If you like spaghetti, they take a big Parmesan cheese wheel and they have the middle carved out and they put the hot noodles in it and then they pour hot spaghetti sauce in it and they carve the middle out a little bit and mix it in. Unbelievable. So it's just an amazing experience. Walking the beach, going to the Betsy, getting the popovers, going to Atlanta, hiking in the mountains in North Carolina, going to Michigan in the summers, going to Mackinac Island. These are just things that are coming to me. Going to Sedona, Arizona, going to Colorado, seeing my aunt, my cousins, spending some time at Estes Park, having a good beer up in Estes Park. Done that. It's amazing. So I hope that I'm helping you illustratively with this. My challenge for you is to really think this through. How committed to rebuilding and resetting your existing relationships are you? I know I've thrown a ton at you, but can you sense that if you brought any of these online, it would aid that relationship? Or there may be relationships where you just need to call it what it is and end it. Or maybe end it strong, but pivot it. So you're around that person or set of people less, and you're building growth, as we call it, high performance growth friends more. People who are more of the above the liners of ownership, accountability, responsibility, growth, ambition, positive mindset. Is that helpful? Sometimes it's a hard truth. And if you need help with that, let me know, because some people are, I wouldn't even know how to, what? How does that even work? So we can talk that through for you and kind of help you with great questions you can ask yourself, and then where to find other people like that. And just as a side note, in our mastery community, we're filled with growth people. So if you're not part of our mastery community, we'd challenge you to apply. We'd love to have you, as soon as presuming you pass the application process, because we're trying to wean out people who are predominantly in the negative. And I say predominantly because some people, they come into the mastery community, they're in a negative space, but it's an acute thing. They're just hurting and they need support from people to get them out of that space. Other people, and you probably know people like this, they live chronically for the long term in a negative space. They poke their head up for positivity once in a while, but that's about it. Does that make sense? So this ends the very powerful training on 7 steps to reset and rebuild existing relationships. And I hope this helped. But the practice of this is everything. So let's get into the action. First and foremost, do the values exercise. So I'll link to Elizabeth's values exercise below. It's in Notion, and it just goes through, like, helps you articulate what's important to you. And I would challenge you to do that with the existing relationships if they're up for it. If they aren't up for it, they might be a fixed mindset. So you might have to sort that out. Second is study the qualities and traits. Really think about, when you think about these things, everything that we've talked about here, ownership, accountability, responsibility, growth, ambition, positive energy, joyful curiosity. Could you imagine being around these people predominantly? And maybe that's annoying to you. Maybe that's not exactly what you want, but for me, that's exactly what I want. And I'm really clear about that. On the flip side, not being around narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, and knowing what that is, really critical. So study that. Decide you're deep or shallow. And it may be helpful, maybe it's not for you. But once you know that, it's so much easier. Like, no, I'm not the kind of person who has fewer friends. I have a lot of friends. And I'm just going to make sure I ask good questions, and I'm predominantly around the people that are more above the line. And we're having fun through the lens of joyful curiosity. Blah, blah, blah. Or I have deeper friends, fewer friends, and I want to really amp the quality of the relationships. Fun, freedom, and adventure. 4, practice the Trifecta of Happiness. Really practice bringing great energy. And it's so hard to do with existing relationships for some. They've reported it's like, you have no idea when I go to my mom, she's just like, boop, 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 boop. And I go in there, I'm like, hey, mom, boop, boop, boop. And she gets me, and I have to help them with their language. She gets me to that negative energy. No, you let yourself get to that negative energy. So what are you going to do to challenge yourself to stay there? You'll notice, this is what happened with a gal when she was in Michigan that I was coaching a few years back, that mom's energy will come up over time. She noticed that. And it was a lot of work. Second area here, active listen. Develop the skills to be present. Listening, not on your phone, not distracted. Own that. Third, ask great questions. If you need great questions to ask, let's talk. I've got bunches of them, and I'll be happy to share them and talk you through them, and in the context of whatever situation you have, we're going to own that together. Those 3 things, critical for rocking it out. Schedule time to co-create. Make it craft time. Get 11 by 17 piece of paper, get a flip chart, go to Office Depot, get a flip chart, get some colored markers, and just start drawing bubbles. Hey, this is fun for us. Lakes Park, date night. This is fun for us. That kind of thing. Really powerful when you have, especially the flip charts that have the stickum. They're called Post-it stick flip charts. And you pull this big sheet of paper, and I have some over here on the wall, and you take it off and stick it on a wall, and it stays there, and you can visualize it. It's so good. Some people, they put it behind their clothes in their closet, and they'll open their clothes up and go, that's the life lived. So that they have that. If they're in their closet every day, they see it every day. Does that make sense? So good. Bonus, ask for help. Join us in our roundtables. I'm happy, if you're not part of our mastery community, to have you in there to role play this for you. But understand coaching, at least high performance coaching, where we're working on a future vision and getting you there, baby steps. Counseling and therapy, and understanding what you may need as you do this work. You may realize some of these traits, qualities, and characteristics are you, and you have to level them up, or get rid of them, or do whatever that is for you to feel better about life. Is that helpful? I know this was a lot today in this training, but I'm just so happy. If you're here right now, you are already on the growth path. You are committed. You're really going after this. If you're not here, you probably are like, I don't want to hear any of this. And you may still live below the line. And that's why it's in red, by the way. Stay away, danger. Blue is ambition. Blue sky is future vision. So I'm here to help you live into the 5 Ps. To live more purposefully, more passionately, more positively, more productively. And if it matters for you, more profitably too. If you need help here, or you need a referral, counselor, psychotherapist, therapist, coach, I'm here for you. Down below, you'll have access to apply for our mastery community, apply for high performance coaching, these kind of things. If any of that stuff resonates or rings a bell right now and you want to take decisive action on these things and go after it, I'm here for you there too. So thank you so incredibly much for being here. Well, let's go out and crush it. Let's live our life to the fullest, feel the best, and own it. Take care. Have a good one. Bye. We rocked it.